Went to the gym last night at like 10:45 on a Friday night, trying to get it in and hit my goal.
How many other people were out the gym?
There was 5 people.
It's the 1% of the 1%. Who's out there on a Friday night when they could be doing whatever? And again, we're recording this on a Saturday. Like, who's out there putting in the work when most people are not? We don't always get our goals, but we always get our standards. It's not like you just wake up being great. You got to do the thing, and it's a daily action. Greatness is, it's those boring things.
It's doing a lot of really small, simple things consistent for a really long period of time.
Winning is a lot of fun, but it's also really hard. If you can survive that moment, you have a superpower. People quit, and you don't have to be the best, but if you can just keep going, and if you do prepare with high standard and you really, really want it, I think you will win.
2026, Justin, born to be great, man. First episode. What we got today?
Dude, I'm excited for today. We got a good episode because we're talking about standards, talking about goals, and specifically, we're going to review a little video by Curt Cignetti, talking about winning, the winning mindset. I think it's a good way to start the year. And yeah, we're going to break it down for y'all. Born to be great. Let's go.
It's a process, and it's a way you go about doing things. It's a standard. It's an expectation. High standard, high expectation. It's accountability, right? It's discipline, commitment, toughness, work ethic, pride. It's wanting to be great versus wanting to be normal. And, normal kind of equals average. And average is okay. There's no problem with average, except in my business. My business, average is the enemy. And to be great, you got to have special focus, special commitment, special preparation, and discipline, and the ability to say no to some things. All right? So you stack great days on top of each other. You play the game the way we want to play the game, one play at a time, 6 seconds a play. Every play's got a life and a history of its own. Play every play like it's nothing. Don't be affected by success or failure. Be able to compartmentalize and go to the next play. Playing it the same way. Because what happens then? You get to the end of the game, game's on the line. You're used to practicing that way, playing that way, right? You're just doing your thing. That guy's looking at the scoreboard and he's like, tightening up a little bit. You win those games.
Dog, man. That was about everything I learned in 25 years of playing football in 1 minute, man. And they just beat the brakes off of freaking Bama, man.
Yeah. No, I love that.
I think I saw something that they have the most losses or whatever in like college football history. And he essentially took the worst team and, they're number one in the nation now. He's an animal, man. I didn't realize he came from kind of Nick Saban's coaching tree, I think back in 2011. So
it makes tons of sense. When you look at that mindset, I think, Saban's obviously the best of the best. He's the GOAT. So I think obviously very similar messages. I did not know that, so that's pretty cool. But dude, he talked about so many awesome things in that video. We want to start with the standard.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the sections that he breaks stuff down are the standard, average is the enemy, stacking great days, compartmentalizing and moving on, and winning the close ones. So I think, for each of these kind of segments, man, there's a lot in them, particularly starting off with the standard. And I think folks in 2026 apply all of these nuggets to their life, they're going to be in a lot better position in 2027. What does the standard mean to you? I mean, Coach Cignetti talks about accountability, discipline, commitment, toughness, work ethic, and pride, high standards and high expectations.
Yeah, I think it's just showing up, how you show up every day. Because, okay, so I'll talk about this from my point of view because I love goals. I'm a big goal guy. I'm always asking you, like, what are your goals? I'm always asking people what are their goals. And I think, but goals are just the first step because they just show you like where you want to go, right? And that's cool. And everyone sort of has goals, whether you're specific or not. I don't think people really have specific enough goals. But you don't always get your goals. It's fun to say, I want the new house. I want to have a successful business. I want all this stuff, right? But that's just step one. Now it's like, what do you got to do to get there? What kind of work are you going to put in? What are you willing to invest in? What are you willing to sacrifice? And I think that's the standard because, again, we don't always get our goals, but we always get our standards. So just like every day, are you going to go to the gym? Are you going to make those phone calls? Are you going to do those emails? Like, right? Like, show me your calendar. Show me your bank account. I'll fucking show you your life, basically. I actually posted about that the other day online. And yeah, I think the standard is basically what you're demanding of yourself every day. I think especially in a team setting, it's, obviously demanding what the team is, the expectation, right? I think he talked about expectations too in that video. Like he's expecting to win. And I think that's important to expect to win because that sets the standard too of like how you're going to show up, how you're going to prepare, right? Because we could both have the same important sales meeting tomorrow, but did one of us prepare? Did one of us go over the script? All of those little things that add up to make the big difference. And I think for me, you mentioned a bunch of stuff there like accountability, discipline, like commitment, like our friend John Gordon, I watched him this morning on Instagram. He was talking about commitments. He was saying the same thing. He's like, it's cool to have all these goals, but what are you committed to doing? Like, what are you going to do when he was talking about it? He was saying when you don't feel like it, right? Because that happens all the time. It's cool to say all this stuff, but when it doesn't, when you don't feel like it, that's when the real thing shows up, right? And
Yeah.
so, yeah, no, that's what I think about it. What do you think about it?
Kind of the four core pillars, because I had a really hard coach in college by the name of Todd Graham, and he ran it like a Navy SEAL program. And, our four core pillars were character, smart, discipline, tough. And it was everywhere in the building. It was on clothes we got. It was on materials that we would get. I mean, every day in college, you're getting kind of the practice script, kind of looking at that stuff every single day. But it's definitely principles that I learned while I was playing, that I apply to my life now, man. And I know when you get a team to buy into that, to being accountable, being disciplined, being committed, tough, work ethic, pride. That's why they're beating the brakes off of Bama, man. They've built that culture and they have such a high standard. Have you heard of I think it's referring to Navy SEALs training, but it's talking about you don't rise to the level of the occasion, you fall to the level of your preparation.
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
and I even saw another clip. I think it popped up right after this one around the Yukon coach Gino. I can't remember his name, but he was just talking about falling to the level of your preparation and having a really high standard. So it's obvious why they're successful, man. What your standards are and what your kind of core principles are. It's probably be a good exercise to write those down because, like you said, goals don't mean anything if you don't have a process and a standard that you use to achieve them. So character, smart, discipline, tough, has been drilled into my mind. But man, he had some good stuff right there. So we'll go to the next thing he talked about. Average is the enemy. And he's, average is okay, but not in my business. I'm trying to be great.
Dude, shoot, I love it at this point in my life. I think I'm allergic to anything average, honestly. And I think that's a big statement. But I mean, in business, again, the whole way I look at things is like, dude, life is short, and especially in business, the average businesses don't get acquired. The average teams in football don't win. It's like, why would you want to be average? And
Yeah.
again, back to the standard, like, what are you doing to hold yourself accountable? What are you really going after? And I think for us too, like, even just when we sold our company, we wanted to be the best provider of our products and services in the industry. And I think that's what led us to be successful because we defined that for ourselves going into this damn thing, and it was reminded to us every day. Obviously, we had fun doing it and stuff too, but I think it's really important, man. The name of the show is Born to Be Great. I think we were all born to be great, and it doesn't have to be just in business or in sports and football like you, but it can be whether you're a mom, whether you got, they can be in your personal life, it can be anything. And so I think again, it comes back to that standard. But I love what he was saying there because I totally agree. I want that from my friends. I want that from my businesses. I want that from every area of my life. And I think we can all fall below the standard, but that happens when you have high standards. And, he talks about preparing and having focus, being committed. But dude, greatness isn't, it's not like you just wake up being great, dude. Like you gotta do the thing, and it's a daily action. Greatness it's those boring things. It's the meetings. It's the working out when you're super sore. Like, I mean, dude, tell me about what you think about it. Cause
It's doing a lot of really small, simple things consistent for a really long period of time. And that kind of touches on what he says, in this segment about having special focus, having special commitment, having special preparation, discipline, and, the courage to say no to some things. I mean, those are all very simple principles, but, to be consistent with those over a long period of time and still focused on doing those when you don't feel like it. It's a very simple principle, but that's where most people fail. Um,
Yep.
but yeah, I mean, I think about my life and 20 something years of playing football and doing a bunch of small incremental things the right way over the course of 2 decades, from training right, eating right, sleeping right, managing my emotions, showing up early, staying late, staying out of trouble, staying hyper focused on the main thing. And a lot of guys that I was around, they couldn't do that over long periods of time. A lot of, there's a lot more talented people out there, but they couldn't stay consistent physically, mentally, and emotionally.
Do you think
But
that's because they let their standards drop?
I think it's a skill that can develop, but at the end of the day, I mean, it's willpower. I mean, yeah, it does go back to your standards, but I think you've got to have core principles that you abide by. And within the football program, we had these core principles, but that didn't mean that everybody bought into them. I mean, I did 100%. Like that was my Constitution, Bible,
Hmm.
10 Commandments. But a lot of people, for whatever reason, they just can't handle. It's a mental and emotional thing, at least in football. Over long periods of times, and they can't. We'll talk about this in, I think, a later segment when he talks about compartmentalizing. They would let stuff outside of football affect how they felt on a day-to-day basis, from stuff that was going on in their family life or career, school, or relationship. It's a whole another level of focus. I mean, sometimes it doesn't even feel human, or like you feel like you don't even have empathy because you're just so dialed in on a specific goal or purpose. But there's a cost to being great. But it takes a supernatural level of focus and commitment and discipline to achieve greatness.
Well, I think let's just talk about what's next then, because that's talking about, you know, stacking the days, right? Again, it's
Yep.
not, you're not just born, like, again, giving a crazy example here, but like LeBron James, dude's got crazy genetics, but he still had to work to become LeBron James. He had to create LeBron James. Obviously, he had things stacked in his favor, but the dude's, shooting hoops, like Kobe shooting hoops 2, 3 times a day, working out twice a day to be the best. And I think that's just, it's the same thing I see in business too. Like, not many businesses succeed. Most of them go out of business. And I'm not saying that's because they don't have high standards and don't want to be great, but it takes, I always, I forget who told this to me, but I always am reminded of it all the time. Like, whatever you think you want or wherever you want to go, it's always going to take longer than you think, and it's going to be harder than you think. And I'm reminded of that all the time. And that's coming back to stacking the great days, right? But if you stack that, day one, day two, that leads to a week, that leads to a month, that leads to a year. And I think Andy Frisella talks about this too, like 1,000 days, I think his concept is, but like you can change your life so dramatically in 1,000 days, but it's got to be at a high standard, go to the gym every day, eat right, get quality sleep, like, spend time with your family, work on your business, work out.
Man, I got to go
And
to the
you're,
gym, man.
yeah, no, I'm
I've
hitting
been,
the gym after
I've been,
this too.
I've been trying to raise my standard, man. I got my little thing set to 900 calories, and because of you, I designed a whole system around my nutrition and fitness this year, and just been trying to stack. And not to talk about myself, but it's so relevant. I've just been, because I got totally out of fitness just this past since I stopped playing football. Just been so dialed in on business and career and blah blah blah. But yeah, man, went to the gym last night at like 10:45 on a Friday night, just trying to get it in and hit my
How
goal.
many other people were at the gym?
Honestly, man, it's crazy. And I go to Lifetime. Shout out Lifetime. They're a pretty awesome gym, except it's super expensive. There was like literally 5 people there late at night.
My point
I
eight.
mean, it was 11 o'clock on a Friday. I mean, they
Still
closed
though,
at,
like
at
who? But
12
like
a.m. But
that's exactly why. Like, but who out there? It's again, it's the 1% of the 1%. Who's out there on a Friday night when they could be doing whenever? And again, we're recording this on a Saturday. Like, who's out there putting in the work when most people are not? And I'm not saying you don't have fun, but that's another perfect example of stacking the great days, even when it's not convenient, when you don't feel like it. I'm sure it wasn't. You weren't so stoked to go to the gym at Friday night at 11 o'clock. I'm sure you were like, dude, this is gonna suck, but you did it anyway, and you probably felt good for doing it after. But like, again, not many people are willing to do that. And I can apply this in a million different business scenarios, like for myself. And I know a lot of successful people that I know as well. But like, it's that kind of stuff right there where you stack the great days. If you didn't get your gym, you didn't get your workout in the morning, like you're still going to show up at 11 o'clock at night on a Friday when most people aren't. They'd probably just say, I didn't do it this morning. I'm going to bed. I'm going to go, I'm going to let this one slide. But then that slides the next day and the next day and the next day. And you wake up and it's like, no shit, dude. Like you let it slide. No shit, gal. Like, but that's back to the standard thing. You let your standards slip, and then the days slip away from you, and before you know it, you look up and you're like, oh my gosh, like my life looks way different. It's like, no wonder why.
It's really a process of just creating a ton of momentum and, retraining your brain to do something every single day. And even remember another guy in college that was our special teams coordinator. He'd coached in the NFL with the Packers for a long time, won a Super Bowl there. He'd always talk about stacking success. Each day, each rep, each practice, each meeting, over long periods of time, man, like you can be amazed at what you can build, not only in sports, but where sports brought me in business. I mean, Justin, the people that we meet global basis. I mean, it is insane, surrounded by a ton of really great people in their field, but it all goes back to just one rep at a time, one day at a time, continuing to build momentum. And even if you get knocked off and don't do something one day, get back up and get to it, the next day. He talks about, each play, having a life of its own. That's like each day. A lot of really good nuggets in what he said, particularly that one. But next one is about almost what I touched on, compartmentalizing and moving on. Mentions success can be distracting, failure can break you. But you gotta learn to compartmentalize, all that. And what that means to me, I mean, everything goes back to football, man. You mess up on one rep, you can't let that carry into the next play.
Short memory.
But yeah, I mean, next play, next man up. Even on the mental and emotional side, compartmentalizing all the different buckets in your life. In terms of tactical tool, learning how to do that, I'm probably not as good at that, and I'm very tunnel vision, and I can't flip the switch on and off like I should be able to. Being focused. Don't let failure from one day, lead to failure the next. But how do you think about compartmentalizing?
Yeah.
And I know Kurt's probably said it so many times, probably says it every day to the IU guys, but I mean, how do you think about that?
I think it's really important because, especially like in my own life, I was in a family business. And so how do you separate family and business? It's like you sort of don't, right? So we actually had to like have a little, I guess a little, I don't even know what you would call it. We'd have a thing we did, which we'd be like, I'm wearing my family hat or I'm wearing my business hat. So we sort of knew like how we were playing right there. But I mean, greatness to me is not just being great in one area. If you're just great in business, but you let your health slip or you let your family life slip, and I don't think that's greatness. And I think it does take compartmentalizing, and it is a skill set. And that's why so many people aren't great. One, they're not even aware of this, and two, they're not even working on it. So I think that's the first reason why. But two is it is really hard. It's hard to have a really successful business and a really good family life and a really good personal life and be in good shape, but they all stack together, right? Like if you're in good shape, you're probably going to make better decisions at work. You're probably going to have more energy to go hang out with your family. So like these things sort of stack. And I think, we talked about compartmentalizing. Now I can't even say the damn thing. Like there's going to be days where you have a big win and there's going to be days where you have a big loss, but you can't let it veer you off the course. Like I remember multiple times where, I've had some good wins and I would get excited, but then the next day is just the next day. So you got to do it over again. Like you're not defined by what you did yesterday. You're defined by what you do right now. And so it's cool to celebrate that for the moment, but you got to do it again. You can't just live in the past. Like I think a lot of people live in the past still, and they're just like, oh, I was the star quarterback in high school, or I did this in college, and I did this and this. And it's just like, people are like asking me too, like over the last year, it's like you sold your company, like now what? And like doing all this stuff. It's like, I don't even like want to talk about it that much because I'm already focused on what's next, right? Um, but there's also tons of failures, what I've been a part of as well. And you can't let that steer you off either, because that's where it really fucking, matters, right? Because that's what really hurts. But it's showing you what you're made of right there. So I think compartmentalizing is really important. You sort of got to stay neutral. Honestly, I think it was Russell Wilson who said this. He's like, he doesn't get too high or too low. He just stays neutral. And like, he'll let himself celebrate, but he doesn't go crazy with it. And he doesn't let himself get down. And I think, I forget who told me this too, but they were talking about how the entrepreneurs who self-soothe the fastest, they're the most successful. Self-soothing, it's a skill set. And we're saying a bunch of hard words today, but it's real, dude. Like you sort of got to brainwash yourself almost. Like you got to like be your own best friend. You got to like, pump positivity or belief in your mind 24/7 because life can be tough, but that's compartmentalizing in a way. So, yeah, to me, I think he's spot on. I think having a coach who's like that, like, dude, if I had that dude in my corner every day, I feel like I'd be unstoppable, right? Um, so yeah, no, I love what he's saying here, and I think again, this whole video is just freaking awesome. But yeah, it all goes back to what you do every day.
Yeah. Well, let's wrap up what the last segment talks about, which is winning the close ones. And it kind of touches on what I mentioned earlier about falling to the level of your preparation. He specifically says late in games when pressure hits, some teams tighten up, others stay calm, because they've trained that way, they practice that way, they live to that standard. Your guys aren't staring at the scoreboard when they're just doing their job. That's when you win those games.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, man, that it goes back to special focus, special commitment. I mean, I know exactly what he's talking about, man. And some people, they just can't handle pressure like that, and they let all these external factors play a role in that rep, that play, that process. That mental checklist that you go through. It's definitely correlated to business, man. Everything and just life in general. The difference between winning and losing is inches. And if you flinch sometimes and some of the biggest opportunities, you won't win. How do you think about kind of winning in close situations?
I think it shows you what you're made of. It's cool to say all this stuff, but like if me and you were thrown into a pressure situation, like we have our biggest meeting of the year, right? Like if we don't close this, like we're going out of business type of thing, or you're in the championship game, whatever. Like that's like what's in your heart. That's what you're made of, and that's just pure instinct, pure reaction. But that's again, it's trained every day. It's going to tell you program yourself, honestly. And so, yeah, the close moments. I mean, shooting business. I feel like luckily I wasn't in a whole lot of those. Like, I mean, obviously I had some pretty important stuff for like, hey, we need this project to go through so we can, make this amount of dollars so we can sell our business for this amount, right?
Yeah.
It was crucial because again, we had a long sales cycle, but yeah, no, there's plenty of life moments where maybe you got to take that test in college or whatever you're gonna do. You're gonna go ask out the girl. You're gonna do whatever it is, right? You're in that game, but I think the people who they are calm in the moment. They can slow the breathing down. And this is something too that like again I don't feel like I'm an expert at all. Uh, my first ever coach that I hired, he would always tell me to you got to learn how to dance in the rain. And I would always tell him like, dude, I'll put my umbrella up, I'll be fine. He's like, no, 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 like you're gonna get fucking wet, dude. Like you just got to learn to enjoy the shit for like a lack of a better term. And it's true though too. Like you have a choice when you're going through the hard stuff to like enjoy it or not. I think a lot of people focus on what's more negative. But yeah, no, if you practice hard, you have those high standards. You're prepared. Like you know the script, you know the playbook. All you gotta do is execute. Like you pretty much did all the work. Now you just got to do it one more time. But just because you're playing in front of 100,000 people or you're in that sales meeting doesn't make it that much different. It's just like the external circumstances are different, but you have to be bigger than the circumstance, I think. And that's hard, dude. Like it's really, really hard. Um, but I think about the fun in all this too. I always go back. I was texting you before this. Winning is more fun than fun is fun. That Ed Milet quote. Again, shout out to Ed. We're quoting him. I feel like all the time. But it is really fun to win. Like winning is a lot of fun, but it's also really hard. And I think when I'm thinking about these moments too, it's like I look back and I think about all the work that I put in, whether that be on myself reading books or working out at the gym or doing whatever, versus going out to the bars and having that fun that one night or watching the game with the boys a few nights a week. Like that work prepared me for the win, and this was really, really fun. So I think that's a part of it for me too, where it's like to close out the wins, like you got to be having fun with it. And I think that's something that's probably not talked about enough. Like I think a lot of coaches in sports definitely, like I'm sure you've heard it a million times, like let's go have fun out there, boys. But like they're being serious. Like they actually want you to have fun. Because if you're not enjoying it too, like what's the point, right? Um, but I think,
Kicking
yeah,
ass is fun, man.
I think about this whole talk right here we're doing about, being great. The show's called Born to Be Great. Like we're still raising our own standard every day. We got skill sets to build. Like we're doing this thing. Like we're leveling up our standard for the year when it comes to the podcast. But there's all areas of life, right? And I think just, that saying the way you do one thing is sort of the way you do everything. Um, I think that's true to a large extent. But yeah, I think having the right mindset is really, really important. I don't think it's talked about enough, especially in business where people always just talk about go, go, go all the time and people get busy. And so I think it's just choosing to be a little bit uncomfortable doing the things that you don't really want to do, but know are going to move you forward. And I think that separates a lot of people, especially nowadays, 2026, where there's AI to outsource your thinking. And there's a lot of these things we don't have to do anymore to take the easy, quick path. Like I was saying earlier, everything you want's pretty much available to you. It's just going to take longer than you think. It's going to be harder than you think. So it's just about doing the work, man. And if you guys listen to some of the guys that we listen to, like Andy Frisella or Ed Milet, Tony Robbins, these kind of people inspired us, and which is why we want to do this and give back in our way, which is why we're recording this on a Saturday. We could be doing anything else, and we're choosing to do this. But what I want to get at here is just like that work will compound and it will have great rewards, especially because most people aren't doing it. And, business, I'll leave it with this. Like I was telling you this the other day too. Like business is a marathon that never ends. So you can't just run all the time. There's gonna be times you got to walk a little bit. You may got to take a break. You might got to go get with your coach and reevaluate, hydrate and stuff like that. But you never stop. But most people are gonna quit. They're gonna, like you were saying earlier, like it's people quit, and you don't have to be the best. But if you can just keep going and keep going and keep going, but if you do prepare with high standard and you do want to be great and you really, really want it, I think you will win. And so that's how I want to live my life. That's how I want to take this podcast, take my business, take every area of my life. And yeah, I think it shows what you're made of when it gets hard. Because again, not everything's going to be easy. And there's going to be moments where a guest might say they're coming on and they might drop off last minute, or you might have that meeting that you're really excited about and they cancel and they say no, or whatever meeting, or you might lose the starting quarterback, or your coach might get sick, or whatever. There's going to be a million reasons when the shit hits the fan, but it's like, how do you show up in that moment? But most people fold, and this is actually how I'm going to end it because I'm just yapping now. But the hard moments, like, what's the saying? What doesn't kill you make you stronger? It does kill a lot of people. That moment does kill a lot of people. So, like, if you can survive that moment, you have a superpower. But that moment does kill a lot of people. And so I think that comes back to the preparation, the standard you hold yourself to. So I don't really love that saying, but as long as you can get through the hard stuff and you can win in those moments, you'll win in life. And yeah, that's the end of my rant. So Nick, what do you think about it?
No, man, just goes back to raising your standard.
What are some things that people can do? Let's get a little tactical here real quick, and then we'll end it out. Because again, 2026, everyone's probably heard this stuff before. But again, if you're new to some of this stuff, so you haven't had awesome football coaches like you, like what would you tell someone who's like 21, 22, they're like just starting their career or whatever, or they're getting into football? What would you tell them?
Define what they want in life, and if they, want to be great, show up early, stay late, do more. Don't try to fit in to what everybody else is doing. Fill yourself with positivity, intentionally, both through what you hear and what you read and what you see, because the world will automatically fill that void with negativity if you don't. Find somebody that, whether it's a mentor or somebody that's great, and try to follow the blueprint that they established to be great. Surround yourself with the right people with super high character. As Ed Milet says, raises the temperature, the thermostat. There's no rocket science to like raising your standards. I mean, it goes back to literally what I learned in college, character, smart, discipline, tough, and just having super high character. Smart is really just, it goes back to preparation. Discipline, that's pretty straightforward, and tough. Got to be tough to handle shit in life. This most simple thing you can do is just go find somebody you think is a dog that has the results to show for that, and go do what they do.
Hmm.
That's what I would say.
Dude, and I love it. I think everything you said, like the video is great. I would add one thing, just if you can find more of these kind of clips and videos to hype yourself up at the moment, that definitely doesn't hurt. Don't go too crazy with it because it's just gonna be fake motivation at some point. But I think these kind of clips are, awesome. Definitely make you think. And there's a lot of really awesome people out there that, like Nick was saying, that you can learn from. And so yeah, 2026 is here. I think it'll be a great year for a lot of people if you can do what we talked about in this video. I mean, we got to live it ourselves, but Indiana again, they were not to say they were a nobody, but like no one expected them to get this far, but they did the work. They had the high standards. They held themselves to that every single day, and dude, they're smoking one of the best teams in college football history in the Rose Bowl. And it's just like you look up and he's confident because he's like, we did the work, dude. Like no one can take anything away from us. We know who we are. And to me, that's awesome. I love a good underdog story. I feel like, Nick, you talk about that a lot, being the underdog. I feel like I'm underdog in a way too. And it's motivating. It can be motivating, but you can't let it consume you. But I think, yeah, Curt Cignetti's an awesome coach. I would love to, dude, we should get him on the podcast. And I'm thinking about that. We got to get him on the podcast at some point. And yeah, fun episode today. So if you guys got anything out of this, please share. Please like the video. Share it to someone who you think would get value out of it. And yeah, we'll be coming out with a lot more awesome episodes this year. We're going to have a lot more episodes, a lot more cool guests. And yeah, 2026 is going to be an awesome year.